Welcome to our continuing series of virtual voices focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and providing factual information. It is hosted by World Information Transfer. Our speaker today is Laura Muranaka. She is the co founder of We the Planet, and she is on a mission to protect all life on the planet. With over 13 years of experience, Muranaka has written, created, strategized, and enacted change with the best minds in the world. In building global movements at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, she has placed life under the sea at the forefront of her work and her designs for buildings for the future. In 2019, she was selected for the inaugural Economy of Francesco by Pope Francis and the Vatican to reimagine our approach to the planet, people, peace, prosperity, and partnerships. Together with leading architects, Nobel Laureates, and Pulitzer Prize-winning authors, she is on a mission to unite world leaders, visionaries, and entrepreneurs to reimagine how science, innovation, design, and technology can protect all species. Over to you, Ms. Moranaka.
Thank you very much, Dr. Durbeck. Such a pleasure to be here today and share some time with all of you. I am Laura Muranaka in New York City, and this is a perfect discussion to have today with people from all generations about blueprints for a better world and sustainable city design. So if technology works today, we will share a video. This is an architectural concept for We the Planet campus, but really sharing ideas is what is important to humanity, and ideas that can be followed with good action that improves life for all people and from all corners of the world, and really makes a difference here for life on land and life under the sea. So, looking at all of the incredible work that World Information Transfer does to promote scientific understanding and better communication for people everywhere, I'm reminded today. I'm reminded of how all of our work started. So with Kunal Sood in New York City, we were looking at what the future of New York City can become. And at the very start of the pandemic, in early 2020, we were two people that stayed in New York for the duration, didn't leave. And so really saw how the city was grappling with extreme challenges, with major health issues, and what day-to-day life felt like in an urban center when people were scared to leave their houses, afraid of, even if they were young and they caught COVID, what would it mean for the elders and the family members living with them? I live very close to Central Park, and so had a view of the treetops in early 2020 when New York City was really grappling with all of the uncertainty of COVID-19, and how this idea began to reimagine urban centers, to bring new life and access to green spaces in New York City was from observation and conversations during the pandemic. For all of our international friends, I will share the story of Central Park, because this was a time when if you lived in a building, you would see, or you were running or walking in Central Park during the pandemic, you would see a screen that they put up around Woolman Ice Skating Rink in the park. And people didn't know. There weren't a lot of people going out. However, from the higher floors, you could see over the screen, and what was apparent was that the city of New York was using the ice skating rink in Central Park as a temporary morgue for the bodies to keep them on ice because there wasn't the human help. Nobody was available to drive to Queens, to the Bronx, to Staten Island for burial or for cremation for these people to go back to their families and loved ones. And that stayed with me all of these 4 years and really impacts how I think about architecture and how I think about the future of cities, to say, what can we as human beings do now? Now is the calm before the storm. A lot of people think life has returned to normal. I don't think it will ever return to the way it was in 2019, but we've all learned a tremendous amount about what living in a major urban center on the planet really entails. And for the mental health of all citizens, for access to green spaces, for the ability, for young people, for elders, for families to have a space in a densely populated major city like New York, to be able to exercise, to have access to nature, to see green, to see trees, plants, and interact with the natural world without going far away from their work or their families is incredibly important. With the topic of sustainable city design and everything that we are doing in New York City to build We the Future and build We the Planet, it's apparent that we need new paradigms for human living. Kunal Sood, founder of We the Planet and We the Future, is someone that we discuss this with constantly to figure out what is the next iteration for New York City, for the future of living in major cities beyond the US too, places like New Delhi, places like Mumbai, places in Brazil. We see the effects of climate change and the importance of the SDGs in Brazil right now, with major flooding and tremendous obstacles for people to navigate their own city and navigate saving family members first, getting to work second, and third, really pondering what the future holds when climate change is apparent in all of our lives in all corners of the planet. And what can we do with our skill set and with our abilities to improve life for all on land and under the sea? I will ask Taras if he is able to share his screen. We see this is on the Hudson River. This is a concept to design a sustainable floating campus on the water so that we are not taking up valuable real estate land. Giving people access to a pier with a running track, with places to exercise. We see human space and natural space and how the two areas can beautifully and seamlessly be connected. We've designed a floating marshland biotope, and there are 7 pavilions that give people access to the water, access to convening spaces like the United Nations, where people can gather, they can present their ideas for a more sustainable future, and partners from all industries would have access to really convene the best minds on our planet now and people working at the forefront of design for the benefit of humanity and the benefit of New York City. And if we go through, we've sort of divided this into water, air, and sea to look at different algae bioreactors, to look at what the small organisms, whether it's plankton, can really do to improve water quality around a campus where people are convening. We know We know from every major American sports arena, large conference centers in San Francisco, in New York, in Dallas. Whenever you have a lot of human beings gathering, unfortunately, there is a lot of trash that is generated. And how can the human environment coexist seamlessly with the natural environment to create a beautiful shared space where we don't see just all of the trash after the Super Bowl games or after a major event where 500 to 5,000 people have gathered, congregated, enjoyed the day, but then what? What does it mean to really live where you don't have the ability to just truck the trash out and it becomes someone else's problem? What can young people do to really leave a smaller carbon footprint, to have a place that is a place of pride, a place in their community that they have access to, they feel good about promoting to all of the people in their networks? And really, how can the average person who might be a physician, might be in a marketing department, might be a psychologist, might be someone who regularly sees clients in an indoor environment. How can we bring them outside onto the Hudson River and other important waterways around the world to really start to see how humans and nature can interact in a better way? So the heart of this project is really to give greater green space to all of the people in New York City and bringing some office dwellers outside onto the Hudson, onto the water to see. Very often we forget that Manhattan is an island. We get caught up in our daily lives inside offices, and we don't have enough access to green spaces to exercise, to meet with colleagues, to meet with family and friends, and to really enjoy the beauty while realizing we have a finite amount of land. It's important to look at ways to clean up our waterways in the Hudson, in other places surrounding New York and New Jersey, and becoming flood resistant, having a place that is able to adapt to change, adapt to a changing planet and rising sea levels. All of this is important for people of all generations to consider and to experience, because if you don't have a place that you go to on a daily basis, on a regular basis, beyond your home and office, sort of like, why are we incentivized to protect it if we don't regularly see nature? Most people don't take an interest in protecting the wild parts of our planet that still can promote a wildflower meadow, that can be habitat to butterflies, that can be habitat to bees, and all of the incredible creatures that are an important part of ecosystems planet-wide. So you see the different areas that we have created. The marshland biotope is very, very important. That has the ability to clean some of the pollution from runoff and other detriments in big urban societies. You see, this doesn't have to be far from the city center. This doesn't have to be far from financial districts or places of commerce where tens of thousands of people are convening every day, rush to go to work. Why not make it a communicative platform? Why not develop places in urban cities that protect all life on land while advancing the frontiers of design? something that is very close to my heart and an important part of the work we do for architecture, for media, for everything We the Planet and We the Future. We really consider how can human beings take small actions every day using their lens of influence, using their skill set, whether it is advancing the frontiers of design, advancing the frontiers of good mental health for all, advancing well-being. Well-being for people of all ages has become incredibly complex and simple at the same time. I say complex, meaning a lot of people don't think they have the time. They don't have the time to get out in nature. Well, it can be as simple as starting with walking, starting with swimming. And if we maintain and protect our land and our waterways, from rivers to oceans, to ponds, small places all around the planet. These are places that people can go to that are within 5 minutes, 15 minutes of their home. They don't need to be expensive to access. They just need to be an important part and a player in their own community where a lot of people feel pride, they feel safe, they feel inspired to spend time. What happens in the process? We all learn, people learn to value these wild spaces still. People put in the time to maintain their well-being, their own mental health, and to really inspire people that they might not have conversations with on a daily basis, to really explore the city, value the city. And I think this is the future of places like New York and what sustainable city design can do as a blueprint for a better world for all. And now I will give the floor back to Dr. Durbeck and really want to open it up to questions. Anybody's thoughts, I'd love to hear them.
Thank you very much for a very educational and illuminating presentation. And now we will go to Susie Halleck, our moderator, for the questions.
Thank you, Dr. Durbeck, and thanks so much, Laura. Very interesting and pertinent topic, and hits close to home as I work in a city too, and I'm constantly craving more nature in my daily life. And sometimes we forget how important it is for our health and the well-being of society to make more time to be in nature. So the first question from the audience is, what environmental habits do you think everyone should have at a basic level?
Thank you, Susie. Okay, excellent question. Trash. We really need to consider, what do we do with our trash? And we see it at every major gathering of human beings. Unfortunately, in this world, so many things come in single-use plastic. So one environmental change that I think all people can do is to really look at what you buy, look at what you consume. Is it individually wrapped? Does one orange really need to be individually wrapped in plastic? If we all can reduce our consumption, it improves our health, it improves the beauty of our cities. And it's a simple action, reducing trash, recycling as much as possible, to really have less stress on the city, on the natural environment. And number two, I think for environmental changes beyond the personal level, I would encourage everybody to look at what gets ordered and consumed in your office. Maybe have a conversation with others in your office too, to really look at paper consumption, look at energy consumption. And we spend, all of us, just sort of being human in 2024, we spend a lot of time inside. Going into the summer months, I know it's definitely in the United States, less in Europe, less in South America. But in the US, we rely heavily on very, very strong air conditioning for June, July, and August. And maybe when you're in the office and you leave the room, it's a conference room, maybe it's only used 1 hour a day. Does it need to be cooled that whole period? No. So small actions indoors and outdoors, I think can improve our natural environment for everybody.
And how can we encourage young people to have an interest in taking care of our environment and kind of influencing? We were kind of in a period of constant development and creation without caring so much about the impacts that our development was causing on the environment. So how can we kind of shift that mentality in the younger generation?
Great question. Shifting mentality really starts with what do you do beyond school? I think really we are going into an AI world where more and everything happens on our phones. And everything we consume, whether it's Instagram or TikTok or information in very, very small, reduced snippets, it's not the full picture. It's not the same as reading a book, reading an article, where a lot of the true knowledge still lives. Okay. With young people, it feels like everybody's attention span is getting shorter and shorter. There's a lot of power in videos. There's a lot of power in visual content that is dynamic and that does have some life and gives life to a topic that might not be incredibly exciting at face value. Where to start, even when you are in your 20s or 30s and you're looking at people younger than you? What can we do? Okay, I think it still comes down to in-person interaction is always the best, better than a phone, better than a screen. And so if there are people elementary school aged in your life, cousins, neighbors, kids, people that are still true children and really, really like to get outside, they like to learn new things, it just comes super naturally for them. Taking a person even younger than you to experience something in your community. It could be a pond, it could be fireflies and butterflies, and sort of looking at where do other creatures go. There's a lot of information to be learned from the insect world. A lot of kids have a natural curiosity about it. A lot of adults don't. For a lot of adults, insects, mice, cockroaches, they are considered urban pests. Unfortunately, because they chew through wires and they disturb office life and home life when they get inside buildings. But taking a step back, looking at where these small creatures come from, look at where they're looking for food, look at where they're looking to build a habitat for their own family. This gets back to our human consumption. If we reduce our trash, if we really design beautiful places that are conscious about sustainability and everything that we're doing inside the building, I think it frees up space outside of the building for everybody to really, really have a space where they can learn. And I encourage everyone to learn about your own city, because I'm always reminded by friends and visitors to New York, there's a lot that I don't know about New York City. And when a visitor comes and tells me things about the places I live that I never knew, I learn something because I see my own city through somebody else's lens. And it's great.
What inspired you to focus on protecting the environment, integrating it into your work with global building designs? Was there a moment you knew when you wanted to dedicate your life to this?
Yes, a moment happened at really age 5, and islands, whether it is New York or Bainbridge Island or places on the West Coast, that is where I grew up. Living on an island is what inspired me to really look at improving the world through architecture and through the eyes of other creatures. When you're not inland, I think water is life. It's a way of transportation. If you need to get to a bigger city, you're reliant. You're reliant on a ferry boat or a mode of transportation that is not a bus, not a taxi, not a subway. And the inspiration from that translated to other island nations and working with people from other corners of the world that really, really have an island upbringing too. And it's one way of really looking at where land and sea merge, because there's a lot that happens there. And throughout human history, where land and sea merge, those have been places of commerce, places to meet people, to do business, to do deals, good or bad. And really in 2024, looking at where land and sea meet, these are a lot of places now where we can consider water quality. We can consider creating something beautiful that is a convening space for people. And we have some work to do as well to clean up our natural environment.
How do you envision the future of integrating environmental conservation principles into the designs of buildings? And what impacts do you hope this will have on global sustainability efforts?
Fantastic question. I think it has a major impact on global sustainability efforts because we see the power of world leaders and a very grand building. Throughout history, this is what a castle was. A castle was the grandest building in the land. And with political figures, they are in a unique spot and have tremendous power to shape future city skylines. I think something very good is being done for this summer. Paris 2024 are the Olympic Games in France this year. And with every Olympics, really every 2 years, whether it's the Summer Games or the Winter Olympics, sometimes with some world leaders and in some cities, we do see the best of humanity getting built. We also see the worst. It's really a case by case, city by city design challenge and human challenge. But the Olympics give me a lot of hope for the future. It's a place to study. And I know there's a lot of people in the audience who are young too, maybe college students, maybe people considering a master's degree in a field that had nothing to do with what they studied 4 years ago or 8 years ago when they were college students. That's how fast our world changes now, especially in an AI-driven future. And that's okay, and that's great. I really, really have a lot of admiration for people that go back to school later in life to learn a totally new skill set, because it benefits them and it benefits their community tremendously to have open-minded thinkers and leaders. And so I would say if there is somebody interested in design, and design is far-ranging, could be fashion design, could be food design, this could be culinary people, these could be future engineers and future architects and future landscape architects. that are really, really at a forefront of where land and sea meet, because landscape architecture has a direct impact on climate change, soil sealing, and really the beauty of a city and where people want to spend their time. So, looking at all of these opportunities for the future, and for somebody looking at how can their skill set make a positive contribution to whatever city they are in across the planet, I would say start with looking at what gets designed every 2 years for the Olympics, because it does unite humans and it does bring the best to the forefront. And it's everything. I take a lot of interest in every country's national garb and what they choose to put their athletes that are representing their country, and really giving it a face of the world, maybe giving a voice to a young designer, somebody who doesn't have a global reputation yet, but giving them the stage to showcase designs, whether it's fabric, whether it's food, things that are sustainable and things that are beautiful, to really, really improve life for all.
Thank you. Can you please share an example of a project or initiative from We the Planet that either brought together diverse groups of people to address a pressing environmental challenge, or one that you really felt made an important impact?
Of course, of course. Even before the pandemic, I will go back to 2019. This was the 50th anniversary of man landing on the moon, and significant for a lot of people with interest in space, and even people interested in sustainability. So Kunal Sood, my co-founder, really looked at the phrasing of those words and said, man landing on the moon. Okay, why hasn't a woman landed on the moon yet? Why hasn't that been part of NASA's major initiatives? And so in 2019, one example of all of this was our big summit at the United Nations in New York to reimagine all of this space tourism, looking at the opportunities. There's so many people that want to invest in intergalactic things when we have so many challenges on our own home planet. So looking at all of the work to be done, from planet Earth to the moon. This was one example. We had more than 400 guests, a lot of people really from age 18 to age 80, which was fantastic, to have intergenerational conversations at the UN about what does it mean to become an interplanetary species. Because humans always have a desire to explore the unknown and to go after the new. And new things are very enticing, very good for marketing, very good for galvanizing people about pursuing something new. But it doesn't mean that we forget about present challenges and challenges closer to home, to really, really find solutions, unite the best minds from all industries to problem solve together.
Thank you. And is there a certain country or part of the world where you feel this design of buildings and architecture is done very well and sustainably today?
Yes. I can only speak to the places where I've spent a lot of time, and one example of that is, I will say, in and around Germany, Denmark, and the Netherlands. These are sort of notoriously places. The Nordic countries rank very high on world happiness indexes. Cold countries, not tropical by any means, but because of what their leaders and their citizens have managed to achieve together, I think in this part of the world, there is a sense of community and resources being put towards a building, a school, mental health, and even access to childcare, so that all the places and all the things that people need um, to live a healthy life and not have sort of the frenetic commute of trying to get your child from daycare before 6 p.m., before the center closes, and then figuring out what you're even going to eat when you get home from struggling in the snow, and looking at food, looking at time consumption, looking at how much free time a family actually has to spend together in the evening. I think it comes back to how cities are designed and how towns are designed. I like this question a lot because what I've seen in Germany, I spend a lot of time in smaller towns. My New York friends ask, am I always going to Berlin or Munich? And I say no. I say no. When I'm in Europe, I spend 90% of my time in Wiesbaden, Germany, which is a smaller city closer to Frankfurt. And what I have experienced firsthand on the ground in small European cities is that the mayor is not lauded, appreciated, put on a pedestal at all. The local government rides their bike to work. And it happens at all levels, at the federal government level, in some of these countries too. You see it. Whereas an American senator would not be commuting to work on a regular basis on a bike. So I think, not being grandiose as a politician does a lot to improve communities, urban centers, and good city design is achievable in towns. Coming back to the US, there are a lot of towns that never even make it into a discussion about architecture or about design because it's not visually appealing. If there's nothing recognizable, if there's not a landmark, something like access to islands or the Statue of Liberty or a gigantic stadium where Lady Gaga or the Super Bowl has played, a lot of small towns in America get overlooked as places where sustainable community design is absolutely important. I also go back to students, students going to a public university, which is what I did. I went to the University of Washington in Seattle. Students going to a public university in the US get a fantastic education at a reasonable price. That is hard to say in America now for all of the private universities. And I think when you are part of different communities, and really communities at all stages of life, whether it's public education, then whether it's the community you become of when you take a job and you most likely start working in an office, or you still have one of those fantastic jobs that give you access to nature, access to working on a project with a small group outside. Outside is important. And whatever this means for you in your own personal life and in your city or town, I always think there's an opportunity to learn. And all of these become the fabric of our blueprints for a better world.
What advice do you have for current students who are interested in working in this space?
Great question. Try to find somebody who already has some years under their belt and who already has a practice, a small office, whether they've been working as a designer for fashion, whether they've been working as a landscape architect for 10 years, 20 years. In this space, the good thing is you find a lot of people who like doing sort of exactly what I've outlined. They are good entrepreneurs and they prefer to work in small groups. It's really not about getting famous, not about becoming a starchitect who designs, for the grandest luxury brands on the planet. The people that will welcome you into their office and welcome you into their design community are entrepreneurs. They've managed to have a team of maybe 20 architects for 20 years. If they've done that, that says a lot about them. Really, really says that not only are they creative, not only do they like designing innovative things and beautiful things, they can also work with people well. And when you find people that have other people in the office, they kind of become a family. When they've worked together 15 years plus, they've seen each other through different life stages and they've seen the design firm grow. They've traveled together, they've worked on international projects together, and 9 times out of 10, they are looking for interns that are curious about the natural world. That's really gets to the heart of all of this. Because to be a designer, and I mean designer in a very, very broad sense, food, fashion, architecture, media, to be a designer is to be curious about the world. And you can feel it. You can feel it when you're looking at books together. You can feel it when you're drawing together. Photographs, all of these are different mediums to really express an idea in its simplest form. You don't even have to be a fantastic artist anymore. There is so much software. Rhino is a great tool for young people still in school who are thinking about really what can they learn? What is a software that is going to be relevant for the next 10 years? And what is creative? If you like to draw, but think you're not great at it, maybe you took a course in school, maybe you didn't get a lot of support for your artistic abilities, but you have an interest, keep that interest alive. There's a lot of tools and software now to bring a very, very simple sketch to life, something that you feel proud to show in a portfolio or to show to somebody who's been working as a designer for 20 years already. And if you're excited about it, they will get excited about it too.
That's great advice. Thank you. Are there any learnings or insights you can share from your experience participating in the Economy of Francesco initiative?
Of course, of course. So this happens in Italy, but the community truly is global. I will say 60% of participants in Economy of Francesco are people under age 35 from South America. That's by virtue of geography and religion. You do not have to be Catholic at all to join Economy of Francesco. When I attended in 2022 in Assisi, Italy, the part of the experience that I liked the most was that I met a lot of young people who were Hindu, a lot of young people who were Buddhist, and they were coming from Asian countries to Italy to meet Pope Francis. This is a space, and there's an application every year for young entrepreneurs, young scientists, which means people pursuing a master's or a PhD that are current students, and young change makers, which really incorporates all of us, people with a big idea for the future of the planet. There's a simple application, doesn't take very long. You write one essay and share more about your project, whether it's as a master's student, a PhD student, a young entrepreneur, or a change maker. And then once admitted to the Economy of Francesco, you get to choose which village you choose to participate in and work on a project. The village that I joined several years ago is called Policies for Happiness. And this really started right at the heart of the pandemic. So we were doing online webinars all of 2020, 2021. And every month, someone, lots of cardinals, lots of monsignors, lots of professors from Italian universities as well, they would join the webinar and they would give a very, very fascinating Italian lecture in English about the economics of donut economics by Professor Radworth, coming from Oxford, was just one that's at the forefront of my mind. Different policies for happiness. What does that mean? Sometimes it was looking through a Franciscan lens of what does the average citizen do for the community. Sometimes it was looking through a very, very economics-based lens or an entrepreneurial lens to develop sort of a social good project where a portion of proceeds are going to support, let's say, going to support mental health for people under age 18, high school students, for example. But definitely, if you want to join a community of young people that are global, that is what Economy of Francesco can offer you, and I do recommend it.
Thank you. Do you ever leverage AI technology in your design projects?
More and more. This is something I am still learning, but AI definitely, it allows designers to scale very rapidly. different AI technologies, can create renderings that are 3D, and what the audience saw today for our concept for the floating biotope campus for We the Planet, that is not AI generated. That is human generated with Rhino software and other tools, because I have a personal interest in still doing things by hand. And everyone that we work with in Germany, they're asking this question too, because they've had long careers without AI, but we all realize AI technologies are touching every industry. Design is no different. I like it. I like AI for speed, for communicating an idea fast. But do I like it creatively? Do I like it for nuances? Not so much. I will say that it has not caught up to being able to tackle very niche, very specific human wants and desires. And if you look at a really specific example that has an important human application, ramps. How does one design ADA approved ramps for people in wheelchairs? If you just type that into some AI generators for architecture right now, it'll give you scary ramps with an incline that is far too steep and would never work in the real world. Why? Why? Because that AI, a lot of it comes from gaming. It comes from the gaming world, and it's designed to give you something very superficial that looks fantastic. It could be a spiral ramp. It could be a very steep ramp with a high vertical incline. It might look amazing on a screen, but it doesn't work in real life. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty still of being a very human-centric designer. Look at fashion. If you still know how to be a tailor or a seamstress, you have a practical skill that somebody that just uses software doesn't have. You know how fabric fits on the human body. You know how to tailor it to specific clients. You have the personal touch and the practical knowledge over 20 years of dealing with different human beings on a different daily basis, so that when one of them says, hey, I have a client, I have a child who's wheelchair bound, we're designing a new conference center, and it's really important to our family that we incorporate, and we know it's specific. This is not going to be in every building you design, but we have a design challenge that needs to be seamless, needs to be beautiful, and needs to be comfortable for the actual child navigating a wheelchair to be able to go on stage, to have access to all of the spaces that everybody else has access to.
Where do you get inspiration for your projects? Are there things that you look to for inspiration?
Animals. My one-word answer is animals. And Dieter Brell, our architect in Germany, and Kunal Sood here in New York as founder, they have had dozens and dozens of conversations with me over the last 5 years about drawing inspiration from animals, and a lot of sea creatures in particular, because the adaptations that those animals have are beautiful, really beautiful from a design lens, and give us humans insight about how to navigate a world where water is increasingly important, and looking at the challenges of rising sea levels from climate change.
In your opinion, how can design influence the formation of public opinion?
Schools. I would love to see more public resources being put into designing innovative schools, so that teachers and young people benefit from architecture that's really cutting edge as they go about their daily lives.
And what do you value most in design?
I value good design that improves life for all and connects to its natural environment. It doesn't do anyone any good to have a very, very tall glass, sexy looking building in a community that's already struggling. It is much better to have a 3-story building that serves the needs of the community while being beautiful in its own way, meaning that it enhances community life.
How can we ensure that sustainable urban development plans take into account the needs and perspectives of all community members, including vulnerable populations? For example, how do you address the challenges of accessibility and mobility in cities in sustainable design?
Great question. I'm an advocate for people going to city hall meetings. You definitely don't have to be an architect to have an opinion about this because it impacts everybody. And if you take some time to go to a community meeting where there are issues about zoning is really, really important to understand, because if you are an entrepreneur, if your family owns a restaurant, if you are a psychologist and thinking about maybe graduating with your master's and opening up a practice from home, is your neighborhood even zoned for commercial activities? Learning about how land gets used in your city or town can give you, your community, your family, a lot of insight about what you guys are going to do personally, professionally over the next decade.
Thank you. And it looks like we're over time. We could probably keep talking to you and learning from you. So thanks for the incredible presentation. Just to close out, are there any books you can recommend to our audience members who would like to learn more?
I would say go back to basics. Greek books. Really, really, anything about Archimedes is where you can start. If you're interested in design from any lens, the Greeks really got design, understood it millennia ago better than anybody modern day. And I think if we look at some of the drawings from Leonardo da Vinci's sketchbooks, we can all learn a lot in 2024.
Thank you. I'll turn back to Dr. Durbach to close out.
Thank you very much for illuminating presentation on educating governments and populations on current and future possibilities in creating sustainable, livable solutions, particularly for the expanding world urban areas. We wish you continued success in all of your programs. Have a very good week. Goodbye.